Hi everyone, my name is Maria Fanciullo and together with Emilia Costa, I worked on our final data story project using New York City restaurant inspection data from 2022 through 2025. Our project focuses specifically on a critical food safety violation. We want to understand not only where these violations are happening, but also how the data can be used in a practical way to support stronger public health decision-making. The main idea behind our story is that inspection data becomes more useful when it helps decision makers move beyond broader totals and identify where follow-ups may be most needed. Our audience is the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, or NYC DOHMH, Borough Food Safety Managers. We choose this audience because borough managers are not just looking at inspection data for general awareness, but they need to use this information to make real decisions, such as where to focus follow-up inspections, which neighborhoods may need more attention, and where outreach or additional support could help reduce repeated food safety issues. Our presentation is organized around several parts. First, I will introduce the beginning of our Tableau data story, focusing on chain level concentration, geographic patterns, and borough-specific filtering. These slides show how manager can move from citywide patterns to more targeted local priorities. Then Emilia will continue with the second part of the story, including borough trends over time, cuisine-specific risk, the grading paradox, recommendation, and our final conclusion. Together, this section these sections help show how restaurant inspection data can support both day-to-day management decision and broader public health transparency. This chart compares critical violation per location across restaurant chains. This is important because looking only at a total violation can be misleading. Larger chains naturally have more location, which means they may also have more inspection and more chances to receive violations. So instead of asking only which chains have the highest total number of violation, this view help us ask a more useful question: which chains may have more concentrated issues at the store level? For the NYC DOHMH, Borough Food Safety Managers, this is helpful because it can support more targeted follow-up. In fact, if a chain shows a higher number of critical violations per location, that may suggest a need for closer review, additional training, or more consistent food safety practice across individual stores. The takeaway here is not to label one chain as the worst, but to show how normalized data can help managers identify where attention may be more urgent or more actionable. The next part of the story looks like geography. This map shows where critical violation records are clustering across New York City, while the ranked zip code chart helps identify the specific area with the highest volume of critical violation. This matters because the citywide totals are useful, but they are often too broad for day-to-day decision-making. A borough manager needs to know which specific zip code or neighborhoods stand out, not just whether violations are higher across the city overall. By combining the map with the ranked zip code view, the dashboard helps turn the inspection data into something more actionable. Manager can quickly see where critical violations are concentrated and use the information to prioritize follow-up, outreach or closer inspection review. For example, if a zip code consistently appear with a higher number of critical violation, that area may be a stronger candidate for additional attention, and then an area with only a few isolated records is not. This slide shows how the dashboard can be narrowed by photo. Instead of asking manager to review the entire city at once, the filter allows each photo manager to focus only on the area they're responsible for. This makes the data more practical because the same citywide dataset becomes tailored to each manager's daily work. For example, a Manhattan manager can focus on Manhattan zip codes, while a Brooklyn or a Queens manager can focus on the patterns more relevant to their neighborhood. This is support more efficient decision-making because a manager can quickly identify which local areas stand out and where follow-up may be most useful. The main takeaway from this section is that the dashboard is designed to help NYC OHMH manager move from broad inspection records to more focused priorities. Chain level views help identify repeated or concentrated issues. Geographic views show where violation cluster, and the bottle filters make the story relevant to each manager's specific area. From here, Emilia will continue by looking more deeply at the broader patterns behind the data. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maria, for walking us through your earlier findings. My name is Emilia Costa, and I will be taking over from here. I'll be covering what the data shows over time, cuisine types, and what it means for rating the system overall in New York City. What you're looking at here is the quarterly critical violation data across all 5 New York City boroughs from 2022 to 2025. The red line is Manhattan, and as you can see, it sits above every other borough quarter by quarter. This is important because one of the first questions you may ask is whether Manhattan's numbers skyrocket due to a certain season or a temporary spike. The data says no. The ranking doesn't shift quarter after quarter. For managers who are already operating below typical inspection targets due to staffing shortages, they are down to inspecting only 66% of restaurants. As for data from 2023 to 2024, this pattern tells you exactly where the limited resources should be concentrated. Beyond geography, the data also reveals meaningful variation by cuisine type. This chart ranks the 10 cuisine categories with the highest critical violations in New York City. American and Chinese cuisine rank at the top of the 10 by a significant margin, 20,000 and 14,000 respectively. Now, it's worth noting that American and Chinese restaurants are also among the most numerous restaurants in the city, so some of this gap simply reflects volume. But even accounting for that, the concentration warrants attention. The CDC has specifically linked American-style establishments, particularly those relying on extended hot holding and multi-step reheating, to disproportionate foodborne illness outbreak risk. Chinese takeout operations share those same practices. Steam tables, hot holding, multi-step reheating processes. These are exactly the operational patterns the data is flagging. Before we look at what the letter grades actually show, it helps to understand the grading system better. New York City restaurants receive an A, B, or C based on their inspection score. Fewer points means better. A score of 0 to 13 points warrants a grade A. All inspections are unannounced. On the surface, this seems pretty straightforward, but there's a critical mechanism most people don't know about. Restaurants that score below an A have the opportunity to contest violations at an administrative tribunal. At these hearings, infractions are frequently dismissed until the score reaches a level A. For large chains and high-volume Manhattan operators, this legal costs to fight violations are manageable enough to treat as pretty much an average yearly expense. Keep that in mind as you look towards the next slide. This is the grading paradox. Each cluster of bars represents one borough, And within each cluster, you can see grade A, B, and C counts. The pattern is the same everywhere. Grade A completely dominates, even in Manhattan and Brooklyn, where we've seen lead the city in critical violations. The overwhelming majority of restaurants post a grade A to the public. A diner walking past a Manhattan restaurant in Manhattan's highest violation zip code sees the same grade A card as a diner in a low violation neighborhood. The underlying violation history is invisible. A grade A earned after 3 tribunal hearings and repeated re-inspections is indistinguishable from one on a clean first visit. That's not a failure of the inspection process, it's a transparency gap in how results are communicated to the public. Based on these findings, we are proposing 3 concrete steps that you can take within its existing authority. First, shift inspection scheduling toward a risk-weighted model, using the borough zip code and chain-level patterns we've shown to prioritize which capacity goes rather than distributing it evenly. This requires no new funding, only a change to scheduling criteria. Second, develop cuisine-specific compliance guidelines for American and then Chinese categories, distributed at license renewal through restaurant partnerships, so high-risk operations get targeted rather than generic guidance. Third, and most consequentially, pilot a supplementary disclosure alongside the letter grade. Something as simple as showing recent violations history so diners actually know what type of restaurant they're walking into. We'd recommend piloting in a small number of precincts before a citywide rollout. To bring it all together, critical violations in New York City are not randomly distributed. They concentrate in specific places, specific chains, and specific zip codes. And Manhattan and Brooklyn lead consistently across those 3 dimensions. The borough trend is structural, not seasonal. The cuisine risk has an explanation backed by national data outbreaks. And the grading system, as currently structured, doesn't surface these patterns to the public. The data to make smarter, more targeted decisions already exists. The patterns are clear. The next step is acting on them. Thank you.